My name is Hannah. I'm 29, and I live by myself in a shoebox apartment in Denver. About 3 weeks ago, I drove 3.5 hours back to my parents' place in a small town in Kansas for what my mom insists on calling our family Christmas dinner, even though it always happens in late November. She says it's more practical that way. Everyone's already off work for Thanksgiving, so we might as well combine celebrations. I almost turned the car around twice on that drive, but guilt can push you a long way. So I showed up, carrying a homemade apple crumble and a smile that felt like it had been stapled onto my face. Dinner was noisy and chaotic. Football blared on the TV, my relatives shouted over each other, and my mom darted around acting like the star of some cozy holiday commercial. I stayed quiet, trying to blend into the background. After the dishes were cleared, my mom stood up and clapped for attention like she was hosting a show. She pulled out a big gift bag full of wrapped presents and started passing them around. My dad got a brand name polo for golf. My Uncle Gary got an expensive bottle of whiskey. My 2 younger sisters got cute, customized gifts, monogrammed robes, a spa voucher, little thoughtful things. Everyone laughed, hugged her, and thanked her. I waited. Of course, there had to be something for me, too. When the bag was empty and she hadn't looked at me once, I forced my voice to sound casual. Is there one for me? She didn't even blink. You should be grateful you're sitting at this table, she said, like she was reminding me she was doing me a favor by letting me be in the room at all. My Uncle Gary snorted and added, Yeah, be glad we still remember who you are. The whole table burst out laughing. My face burned. I just nodded and said, Good to know. No tears, no fight. Just that. I left early, got in my car, drove back to Denver in the dark, and decided something had to change, because 2 weeks later, the same people who laughed at me were outside my apartment door, pounding and shouting for me to open up. That's when the real story started. When I got back to Denver that night, I dropped my keys on the counter, put the untouched apple crumble straight into the trash, and slid down onto the kitchen floor with my phone in my hand. Part of me wanted to send a long message to the family group chat and spell out exactly how humiliating that dinner had been. But I knew how it would go. They'd tell me I was too sensitive, it was just a joke, and that I should be grateful I was even invited. So instead, I texted my best friend Zoe. She called me within half a minute. I told her everything. How fake it felt, my mom's "be grateful" line, my uncle's "still remember who you are" comment, the way everyone laughed. There was a long pause. Then Zoe said, in this very calm voice, Han, that's not just rude, that's cruel. They don't respect you at all. Hearing someone else name it out loud made something snap into focus. While we were still on the phone, I opened my banking app and started scrolling. Monthly gym charges, streaming services tied to my card I barely used because I was always working, a family Amazon Prime account under my name, ticket purchases, food delivery, ride shares, little, can you put it on your card? I'll pay you back Friday. Moments that never turned into anything. It hit me that for years I'd been the invisible financial backbone of this tight-knit family they bragged about. They had no problem remembering my card number, even if they loved pretending I barely existed. Zoe said, What if you just stopped? What if they actually had to feel what it's like not to have you as their safety net? The idea scared me and thrilled me at the same time. That weekend, I sat at my tiny kitchen table with my laptop and a notebook and made a list. Mom's Pilates studio membership, Mom's gym auto pay, Dad's streaming accounts and the Prime subscription, my sister's last-minute concert tickets, amusement park passes, in gas money loans, every subscription and auto-renew where my card was quietly keeping their life comfortable. Then I started shutting things off. Cancel membership, turn off auto-renew, remove payment method. With every confirmation email, I felt a little lighter. I didn't announce it in the group chat. I didn't make a speech. I just let their conveniences stop working. A few days later, my mom called during my lunch break. No, hi, no, how are you? Just, Hannah, my gym card got declined. Did something happen with your account? I swallowed and said, I canceled it. You'll need to put it on your own card now. She sounded offended. You know I need those classes. They're good for my health. I rely on that. I replied, You also know what you said to me at dinner. I'm done paying for people who can talk about me like that. She gasped like I'd slapped her. That night, my dad called because nothing would log into the streaming apps. It says we need to update payment. You must have messed something up, he complained. I didn't mess anything up, I said. I just stopped paying. You're grown adults. You can handle your own subscriptions. He went quiet, then snapped. Families take care of each other, Hannah. Exactly, I said. That goes both ways. After that, the group chat lit up with passive-aggressive messages about how some people forget where they come from and how money isn't everything, but certain folks think it is. I muted it. I decided I wasn't going back for Christmas, no matter how many guilt trips they tried. For the first time in my life. But I refused to play the role they'd assigned me. I assumed they'd sulk, complain about me to anyone who'd listen, and then move on. I underestimated how much they depended on me, not just for money, but to keep their version of the story in place. Because as their comforts started failing, their desperation grew. And that's how I ended up with my entire immediate family pounding on my apartment door. The real fallout started a few days after I'd finished canceling everything. I was at work staring at the same paragraph of a brief for the 5th time, when my phone started buzzing nonstop. The family group chat was going off like a fire alarm. My mom sent a long message about how some children turn on the people who raise them, how deeply hurt she was that I'd attacked her health by canceling her memberships. Or she described it like I'd cut off her medication, not stopped paying for her yoga classes. She said working out was the only thing keeping her sane, as if I was personally responsible for her mental stability. My dad followed with his usual lines about their sacrifices and my obligations. He tossed in the classic, "You wouldn't have your nice life in Denver if it wasn't for us," the thing he always says whenever money comes up, as if my job and my degree were installments on a bill he could collect forever. Then my sisters chimed in with emojis and subtweets. One wrote, "Imagine choosing Netflix over your own mom," which was extra ironic since I barely watched it and they used it constantly. Another said, "You've changed. You used to be nice," with a crying emoji. I stared at the thread, felt my chest tighten, one then hit mute again and flipped my phone over. A few minutes later, Zoe texted screenshots from Instagram. "You seeing this?" My youngest sister had posted a black background with white text. "Some people will cut off their own blood for money. Remember who was there before the paycheck." Broken heart emoji, praying hands emoji. She didn't tag me. She didn't need to. Half our relatives follow both of us. My mom commented, "So true. Love you, sweetheart. Some people just lose their way." Cousins piled on with family over everything, money can't buy loyalty, and people change when they move away. No one mentioned my mom telling me I should be grateful to be allowed at the table. No one mentioned my uncle's joke about forgetting who I was. Sus, no one mentioned the years of, "Can you put it on your card?" They were rewriting the whole thing in real time, turning themselves into victims, and me into some cold, greedy traitor. I locked my phone and sat there, listening to office noise and my own heartbeat. I realized I'd spent my life terrified of being called ungrateful, so I'd overgiven to prove I wasn't. And the second I said no, they stuck that label on me anyway. That night, instead of crying, I opened my laptop at my kitchen table and pulled up my bank statements again. If they wanted to talk about who owed what, we could talk numbers. I downloaded 5 years of transactions and filtered by merchants. Gym, Pilates, streaming, online shopping, theme park tickets, concerts, late-night charges with notes like, "For Emma plus friends" in the memo. Emergency car fixes that my uncle couldn't cover until payday. Restaurant bills where I'd picked up the check because "you make more than us, it's no big deal," said half joking, fully meant. For every line item I recognized, I remembered the conversation that went with it. The excuses, the promises to pay me back, the way I'd smiled and swallowed my annoyance. I copied everything into a spreadsheet, added dates and short descriptions, color-coded by which family member, and watched the totals climb until I had to lean back and just look at the number. This wasn't generosity. This was a system. I drafted an email to my parents and both sisters. Subject: "Since we're talking about who owes what," in the email, I wrote that I knew they'd done things for me growing up, that I appreciated having food, a bed, and education. Whoa, I wasn't pretending I'd raised myself. But I also wrote that the idea I owed them unlimited financial support and zero boundaries for the rest of my life was neither fair nor healthy. Then I pasted the spreadsheet total and a breakdown of the categories below. I didn't call them scammers. I didn't demand repayment. I just wrote, "If you want to keep insisting I'm selfish and ungrateful because I stopped paying, please look at this and ask yourselves honestly, who has actually been taking care of whom?" My hands were shaking as I hit send, but it felt like setting down a very heavy bag. My mom's reply hit my inbox quickly, subject in all caps, "How dare you?" The body was a wall of text. She called my list cruel and manipulative. She said only a heartless child would throw money in her parents' faces. She accused me of putting a price tag on her love and sacrifices and making her feel small on purpose. She ended with, "I am ashamed of who you've become, and I don't even recognize you anymore." Then she blocked me on Facebook. I know that because Zoe sent me the next screenshot. My mom had posted a generic quote about family being forever even when some forget, plus a long caption about staying strong during trials and being grateful for the children who remain loyal. The comments were full of praise for her as a mother. None of those people knew who'd actually been paying for most of her comfortable habits. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, buzzing with anger. Yet underneath it was this strange clarity. They were never going to wake up one day and suddenly see me accurately. They needed me to be the difficult, their ungrateful daughter in the city, to keep their narrative tidy. The only thing I could actually control was my access, my money, my time, my responses. As Christmas got closer and more of their conveniences started asking for new payment methods, the tone shifted from guilt trips to panic. And panic doesn't stay in text. It shows up in person. 2 weeks after that Thanksgiving dinner, they came to my door. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was half watching a YouTube video, half enjoying the quiet when the building buzzer went off. I thought maybe a package had arrived early. Then my phone lit up with my dad's name. I let it go to voicemail. A second later, my mom called. Then the buzzer went again, longer this time, like someone had leaned on it. My stomach dropped. I pressed the intercom button without speaking and heard my mom's voice echoing faintly up the stairwell. "Hannah, we know you're there. Let us in." Her tone was artificially bright, but under it was steel. I didn't buzz anyone up. A few minutes later, I saw movement at the peephole. My parents had convinced some random tenant to let them into the building. Now they were standing outside my apartment door. My mom held a shiny gift bag stuffed with tissue paper. My dad had 2 more dangling from his wrist. My phone started ringing again on the table behind me. I ignored it. My mom knocked softly at first. "Han, sweetie, open up. We brought you a few things. We just want to talk before Christmas." She pitched it loud enough for the whole floor. I walked closer, but didn't unlock anything. "I don't want to talk," I said through the door. "Do you need to leave?" Her voice flipped in an instant. She knocked harder. The bags rustled. "We drove 3.5 hours to be here. The least you can do is talk to your parents." My dad added, already irritated. "We're not doing this through a door. Open it." "No," I repeated. "You don't get to humiliate me, laugh at me, and then show up with gifts like that erases it. Go home." There was a pause. Then the knocks turned into full-on pounding. My mom's voice rose, layered with fake heartbreak. "The city has ruined you. You think you're too good for your own family now? You cancel things without warning. You send that disgusting email, and now you hide. Our family's falling apart, and you don't even care." My dad's voice came next, lower, angrier. "This is about respect. We raised you. You owe us a face-to-face conversation." My sister texted, "They're at your door. Just open it. Mom's losing it. Don't make this worse." I typed back, "They came here after I told them not to. That's on them." "You're being cruel. They brought you Christmas presents to make it right," she replied. Out in the hallway, my mom doubled down on that angle. "We brought you gifts," she shouted. "We didn't forget you. We're trying. This is what you wanted, isn't it? Attention?" "I didn't want presents," I said. "I wanted you not to treat me like trash. You haven't even apologized." Silence. Then my mom snapped, "Are you seriously still hung up on that? It was a joke, Hannah. Normal people can handle a joke. You've blown one comment way out of proportion and punished us for it ever since." That was the moment I knew opening the door would change nothing. I texted my mom, "If you're not gone in 10 minutes, I'm calling building security." Out loud, I repeated, "Leave, I'm not kidding." They stayed, knocking and ranting and pleading, for another 20 minutes. My heart pounded the whole time, but I didn't move the lock. I just stood there reminding myself over and over, "You're allowed to say no." Eventually, they left. A neighbor down the hall later DM'd me through the building portal asking if everything was okay and politely mentioning the shouting earlier. I sat on my couch afterward, hands shaking, and opened a notes app to write down exactly what had happened. Every word I could remember, every feeling. I didn't want to give them room later to tell me I'd imagined it. The more I wrote, the clearer it became. This wasn't about a misunderstanding over money. This was about control. They were not used to me having boundaries, and they were not handling it well. I thought that would be the end of the in-person tactics. I was wrong. For a few days, things quieted down, The group chat shrank to vague quotes about forgiveness and praying for those who've lost their way. I left it muted. Meanwhile, the practical impact of my canceled payments settled in. I heard from a cousin that my mom had been complaining at work about having to give up some classes because the gym wanted a new card and sign-up fees. She'd even asked a younger coworker to help her figure out budgeting apps. My dad had to call customer service himself for once and sit through hold music to reset passwords. Word got around that he'd been ranting at the golf course about kids these days and ungrateful brats who treat parents like ATMs. My uncle's reputation took the biggest public hit. A neighbor had filmed part of the hallway scene on her phone and shared it in a local neighborhood group. People saw him grabbing my shoulder. They saw the cops arrive. The man who loved being the funny uncle at every party was now the guy who got a harassment citation because he couldn't take no for an answer. My sisters had fewer treat yourself posts and more working extra shifts posts. Without me quietly plugging financial holes, they had to adjust. Inside my apartment, once the adrenaline faded, I crashed. With no new crisis to distract me, all the old hurt bubbled up. The jokes at my expense, the backhanded comments, the times I'd pulled out my card and swallowed resentment because it was easier. I found a therapist and booked an appointment. In our first session, she asked, "When did you start believing it was your job to hold your family together?" I didn't have a neat answer, but I could feel something in me loosening, just being allowed to say out loud, "I'm tired." I also found an online support group for people dealing with manipulative or financially exploitative families. Reading other people's stories, I saw my own patterns laid out in different words: guilt tripping, entitlement, weaponized gratitude. It didn't change what my family had done, but it changed how I talked to myself about leaving. Months later, my mom finally broke the silence with a short email. No subject line, just, "I'm sorry things between us got so bad. I don't agree with the way you've done things, but I miss you. I hope you're all right." It wasn't the apology I wanted. It sidestepped accountability. But it was something. I didn't respond right away. When I did, I kept it short. I told her I was okay. I said I hoped she was taking her health seriously. I wrote that if we ever spoke again, it would have to be different. No yelling, no guilt, no pretending what happened at that dinner was a joke. I told her I'd only be willing to meet in a neutral place, ideally with a therapist present, and that I would not go back to funding their lives or accepting being mocked in exchange for being included. Hitting send didn't feel like throwing the door wide open. It felt like installing a deadbolt and leaving a narrow window that I controlled. I don't know how things will look years from now. Maybe we'll build something smaller and healthier. Maybe we'll stay low contact forever. What I do know is this: for the first time, my peace doesn't depend on whether my family approves of me. I pay my own bills for myself, not to earn a seat at their table. I spend holidays with people who don't turn me into the punchline and call it love. I no longer measure my value by how useful I am to people who believe biology entitles them to my money and obedience. If there's any lesson in all of this, it's that family is not a license to treat you however they want. Love without respect is just control dressed up as concern. Boundaries are not betrayal. They're self-respect with a spine. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not slam a door, but walk away. Let people experience the consequences of their own behavior and build a life where you're not grateful to be allowed in the room. You're genuinely glad to be standing on your own.